Controversy continues surrounding the union representing DPW and other city workers, AFSCME Local 44.
They overturned that election without notice or an opportunity to be heard.
I'm going in depth on the battle over union leadership and why some are trying to make a change. Plus, an ongoing feud between Baltimore's mayor and city state's attorney.
You're hiding the ball from your teammate.
How Mayor Scott is responding to Ivan Bates's transparency concerns about MONSE as Bates distanced himself from the mayor's crime-fighting strategy. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Fox 45 News In Depth. I'm Mikenzie Frost. Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates has announced he's cutting ties with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE. That announcement sparking a renewed debate over the city's crime fight between Bates and Mayor Brandon Scott. In a series of letters, Bates and Scott going back and forth about MONSE. Bates claims the program operates behind a, quote, cloak of secrecy, while the mayor says MONSE isn't hiding anything. A flurry of letters are flying back and forth between Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and Mayor Brandon Scott. The issue stems from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE. For months, Bates has raised concerns with some of the programs MONSE operates, including Safe Streets and a previously operating pilot youth diversion effort, Sidestep. On December 2nd, Bates penned this 7-page letter obtained by FOX45 News through a public records request, telling Mayor Scott he intends to cut ties with MONSE, an agency he says is cloaked in secrecy. Bates says his office has been kept in the dark about assistance MONSE offers to victims and witnesses, which can lead to complication.
So it's interfering with their ability to just do their day-to-day job.
Jeremy Eldridge is a Baltimore area attorney. He says Bates's concerns with MONSE about not sharing information with the top prosecutor's office can impact cases because defense teams need to know that information.
The issue here is not whether victims of crime should be compensated with things like restitution. The issue is how it's done. Is it being done in conjunction with the state's attorney's office so that you don't interfere with the prosecutor's ability to prosecute that victim's case? That's the issue.
When Mayor Scott says he got the letter,
I'm actually really shocked that I got that letter because I thought that there had been a turning point, and I hope that there still has been.
And we asked him about some of Bates's concerns. Did you know that MONSE was offering incentives to victims and witnesses of crimes without revealing that information to the state's attorney's office?
When you talk about victim services, let me just say this. My priority is making sure that folks who need services receive them. We're not hiding information from the state's attorney's office about victims for cases. I just want folks to know this, that follow the normal process for SAO and BPD and MONSE only steps in when BPD and the state's attorney's office victim services are unable to.
Mayor Scott sent a response to Bates, which FOX45 News obtained again through a public records request. The mayor urging Bates to reconsider severing coordination with MONSE, noting the progress the city has made in reducing violent crime. The Group Violence Reduction Strategy, or GVRS, is part of the mayor's crime plan. In his letter, Mayor Scott talks about the plans to scale it citywide. Wednesday.
Today, we had our GVRS strategic management team meeting, as they do every other week. It's unfortunate the state's attorney's office was not there, but other partners were. And while we are in a better position than we've ever been with public safety, I will not allow anything to distract us from that work.
Mayor Scott says keeping Bates's office involved in GVRS is crucial, especially as he prepares to expand. But Bates maintains GVRS cases make up less than 5% of the cases his office prosecutes every year. Bates firing back in a response to the mayor, saying he recognizes the role of collaboration and the shared goal of reducing violence. However, he says the mayor did not address his core concerns, adding, "It appears from your response that you do not fully appreciate the gravity of the issues that have been created by MONSE that were raised in my original letter." The state's attorney's office has an ethical responsibility to victims, witnesses, and defendants, according to Bates, that MONSE does not. Bates adds the public defender's office has been notified of possible gaps in discovery due to information about victims that MONSE has not shared with the state's attorney's office.
Anytime that the state's attorney's office feels as though they're not able to comply with the discovery. So much so that they're reaching out to the Office of the Public Defender to let them know that there's an issue. We have a serious problem. The mayor's office should have coordinated with the state's attorney's office. That was a mistake on their part.
But Bates also takes issue with the city's pilot program that right now is not operational anymore. It was to divert young offenders, and it's called Sidestep. He argues kids are being kept out of court without victim input, diversion decisions are not being made by attorneys, and some kids were paid to participate by organizations running the pilot. MONSE also did not share the names of the participants, Bates argues.
You cannot say we're all together, we're working on the same team. There's transparency when your number one partner, the person who's involved and in charge of the criminal justice system in terms of Baltimore City, you don't want to share that information. You're hiding the ball from your teammate.
The mayor's office says they are prevented from doing so by state law. Mayor Scott says the payments or incentives was not part of the pilot. While Aldridge says diversion programs are important,
It's a very useful tool.
he says victims must be involved.
The problem is when you're not including the victim in the process, the biggest thing you're depriving the victim from under the Victims' Rights Statute is their ability to voice their opinion in court.
The timing of Bates's first letter has raised questions since he's running for re-election next year. But Eldridge argues the ballot box is not what Bates is fighting for with this.
I don't think this issue is political at all. I think it's about safeguarding the sacrosanct criminal justice system that needs protecting.
Ultimately, both Mayor Scott and State's Attorney Bates say they are willing to find a path to move forward. But the issues with transparency and communication surrounding MONSE appear significant. The two say they're willing to meet, but a date has yet to be set before the end of the year. Mayor Scott created MONSE 5 years ago in December of 2020. There have been questions about transparency within the office nearly that entire time. Shantae Jackson was the first MONSE director. I tried to ask her about the Safe Streets program many times. I've also asked for a sit-down interview. Jackson walked away from our questions more often than not and refused to agree to an interview.
We're not talking about cherry picking numbers. Let's make sure we don't record that, okay?
Okay. Director Jackson, can I ask you a couple of questions?
I think the mayor said meet us at the next event.
Are you going to the next event?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Director Jackson, can
No,
you,
thank you.
explain a little bit more about
thank you.
ROCA? When can we learn more about Safe Streets? Ivan Bates isn't the only one who has had hard time getting information from MONSE. Stephanie Mavronis is the current director of MONSE. She often refuses to hand over details and materials surrounding the program, both to us and city council members.
Whatever data was provided to Hopkins or whoever did that study, can you provide that same raw data to the council?
We would need to look into that and get back to you. I think the reason we intentionally provide aggregate level data is because of some of the privacy and sensitive information that we referenced earlier.
The public can see those logs?
Those are not public logs, no.
Why?
These are logs that are being used over the course of someone's work to log what they're doing throughout the day. These are also not documents that I am the owner of.
Joining me now to take a closer look at MONSE is taxpayer advocate David Williams. David, thanks so much for joining us. We have talked over the years significantly about MONSE, transparency, and how the city agency is spending tax dollars. Let's start with some of the transparency concerns. What do you believe is the biggest issue here, given what we're hearing from the state's attorney's office when it comes to information sharing?
Good evening, and this is very disturbing. And really going back to the clip you played of Shantae Jackson, this is a public servant who is making a lot of money and refusing to answer questions. That's problematic. And when you have the state's attorney, Ivan Bates, coming out with a 7-page letter saying there's secrecy, a veil of secrecy, that is very concerning. Here is a gentleman who obviously has had a great impact on crime in Baltimore City. And for him to have these concerns, I think everyone should be paying attention to. And of course, MONSE is taxpayer funded, Safe Streets is taxpayer funded. So there has to be 100% transparency, 100% accountability. And MONSE has never had that. Safe Streets has never had that. So there are a lot of issues.
You know, in the response to the first letter, Mayor Brandon Scott argues that Safe Streets has been transparent when it comes to oversight with how the money has been spent. He says MONSE sits before the city council when it comes to budget questions. But do you believe that the public really has a full understanding and a detailed breakdown of where the money is going?
I really don't believe that the public knows exactly where the money is going. And part of the problem is that the money is going to nonprofits, and nonprofits are less transparent than even the city. I know that's a pretty big statement, right? Because the city is not transparent. But when you are giving money to a nonprofit, they don't have to record details of their expenditures. And therein lies the problem, is that, you know, a few years ago, they were buying sneakers, they were buying video games, and it took some deep, dive investigation to find that out. This was not publicly available information until, we found it out through a deep dive investigation, and that's very concerning. And MONSE, their budget is growing, and they're getting federal relief money of $50 million, and their staff is growing, their footprint is growing, and that's why I think it's important that Ivan Bates did this now and said, okay, we need to stop this. And I got to tell you, there's a carrot and a stick when it comes to MONSE or any city agency, and the stick has to be the funding. You really have to look at the funding and say, okay, we are not going to fund this program or these projects until we know exactly where the money is going. Now, of course, the Board of Estimates has to get involved, and the mayor has to make a lot of those calls. But I think that's the next step here, is to freeze funding until this veil of secrecy is lifted, either from the state's attorney's office or for taxpayers.
Well, that's interesting because we know that next year, obviously during the budgeting season, when the city council members will have the opportunity to talk about this, and with the end of the federal COVID era money, the conversation about institutionalizing, as the mayor's office often says, the MONSE programs will have to come up, and what that looks like. Is this an opportunity for the council members to really demand some answers about how the programs are being funded and what MONSE is doing with that money, if the general fund is looked at as a way to fund this?
It absolutely is. And you talk about next year, but my concern is 5 years, 10 years down the road, when this program and these projects have been institutionalized and you have the spending continue after the federal relief money has gone dry. So I think that's what the city and the city council and the Board of Estimates, they need to look at 5, 10, 15 years down the road and what this is going to mean to the city financially, and really the drag it's going to be, because we've seen that, they want to expand their staff, I think up to 45 people. They've talked about hiring a lot of people for MONSE and Safe Streets, so it's a huge concern for taxpayers.
All right, David Williams, always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over the years, Mayor Scott and City State's Attorney Ivan Bates have repeatedly feuded largely over how to address public safety. One of Bates' main initiatives as the city's top prosecutor was a citation docket to enforce consequences for quality of life crimes. But last year, Bates told FOX45 News he believed the mayor was telling Baltimore police not to participate in the citation docket. Bates said he spoke with Scott at a Ravens game about the citation docket, later clarifying it was actually a cop and state game. But Mayor Scott denied that conversation ever happened.
I remember my daughter ran up to him and gave him a hug, and I gripped me up, said, hey, I really need your officers to enforce these citations. I got you, Ivan, I got you. I'll talk to Worley.
You say in a meeting, or you say when you see me somewhere, I need them to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. If you don't do that, and the very first time that we hear about the issue is my political opponent bringing it up, then that lets you know what the issue is, and it's simply about politics.
Then, right before the primary election, Mayor Scott announced he was expanding the city's group violence reduction strategy. He claimed the decision was based on data, while Bates argued GVRS is not a major part of the crime fight.
I don't play politics with public safety. Other folks might choose to do that. You might choose to do that. I'm not. We expand GVRS based on the data, the connectivity of the groups. And when you understand and know public safety in Baltimore, but more importantly, the streets of Baltimore, anybody will tell you once you've done the west side, the east side is where you have to go. GVRS is the mayor, the state's attorney, police commissioner, and MONSE.
The mayor has touted over and over and over and over again, GVRS, GVRS, GVRS. GVRS is only 2% of the violent crimes that my office prosecutes. Violent crime, we're moving in that direction. However, like I said, when it gets to quality of life crime. So yeah, our grade is incomplete because we haven't done the rest of the work.
Bates endorsed former Mayor Sheila Dixon in the Democratic primary against Mayor Scott. Given the back and forth over public safety policy, I asked Mayor Scott whether he will support Bates's re-election effort. After Bates announced last month he'll seek another term.
How would you describe the working relationship that you have with the state's attorney? And at this point, are you supporting him in his effort for re-election?
Well, he hasn't asked me about that yet, so that's the conversation that I had to have with him first. But I just said it very clearly. You don't hear the state's attorney's office complaining about, if we heard this in the past, about the quality of cases that the police department is bringing to them at my direction. We work every day together, and we'll continue to do that because, as I've said time and time and time and time again, Mikenzie, I do not play politics with public safety.
This week we asked if you share Bates's concerns about MONSE. We'll take a look at some of your responses coming up later in our show.
Who's going to be our first ever next level baker?
Fox tonight. Gordon serving a holiday treat with 2 new friends.
Let's go!
It's 3 weeks of the best holiday baking competition ever.
Your cakes are burning!
Sugar.
Beautiful.
Spice.
This is why bakers are just better than chefs.
And even Gordon's being nice.
That is a celebration right there.
Ho, ho, ho! Get it on that plate!
The winner is...
Tonight at 9 on Fox 45.
At University of Maryland Global Campus, our students know that every new skill they learn helps move their career forward. That's why we offer an affordable, skills-based education so you can build on your abilities in communication and leadership. Learn more at umgc.edu.
Not up to our standards. Device secured. Testing now.
3 minutes is all I need. Smooth glides. Performs well under pressure. No detectable fallout. Evaluation complete. This thing is the real deal. The closest shave in just 3 minutes.
The Baldy Pro, only at Groomy.
For type 2 diabetes, once-weekly Mounjaro could help. 3 out of 4 people reached an A1C of less than 7%. And people lost up to 25 pounds. Don't take Mounjaro if you're allergic to it, or if you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop and call your doctor right away if you have an allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or vision changes. Serious side effects may include inflamed pancreas and gallbladder problems. Taking Mounjaro with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Tell your doctor if you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills, and before scheduled procedures with anesthesia. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and may cause kidney problems.
I can do diabetes differently with Mounjaro.
Pay as little as $25 per month. Ask your doctor about Mounjaro.
At McDonald's, get an iced coffee for 99 cents until 11 a.m.
99 cents? Nuh-uh.
Yeah-huh.
Any size? It doesn't make sense.
But I do have 99 cents. See what we did there? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
The controversy surrounding the AFSCME Local 44's leadership vote continues. The winner of the presidential election in August, Stancil McNair, is asking the judge to stop a do-over election scheduled for Saturday. The judge hearing arguments Friday. I sat down with the mother of Ronald Silver, the DPW worker who died on the job, and Stancil McNair's lawyer about why they feel McNair is the right person to lead the union and why they don't believe there should be another election. When tragedy struck for the Silver family,
he was the first person to reach out to me after my son died.
Faith Johnson, Ronald Silver's mother, says there was one person from the Department of Public Works who kept in touch with her family.
In fact, he was the first person to say his name in reference to my son. And this man used to call me every day just to make sure I was okay.
What was that like for you?
It was amazing. It made me feel like, wow, they really love my son. You know what I mean? And it made me feel like he was genuine and sincere. And I just think this is messed up. I do the moment the moment that change could really matter. And then you find a little hiccup. I mean, let's be honest, anybody who knows who Stancil McNair is knew what he stood for prior to that election. And I do mean anybody, from the city to his constituents and anything else.
Now, through Stancil's not here, I understand that the so-called gag order is still in place because the election is still being contested and there is a new election that has been ordered. How's your client right now?
Look, he's going to campaign for the same issues he's cared about deeply for not weeks, not months, but years. You have to remember that what Ms. Faith is talking about, it wasn't on the eve of an election that Stancil McNair was reaching out to the family of a fallen colleague. This was years before the election that he was standing up and speaking out on behalf of workers and workers' rights. It was in the context of the reports by Isabel Cummings that Stancil McNair was saying, yes, this is what we've been complaining about. This is what we've been enduring for years. And as one of the sole voices at a time when no one was paying attention, there were no cameras, there were no elections, there were no legal protests, there was no tragedy of Ronnie Silver. He was already speaking out. So Stancil McNair wasn't angling for something. He was just fighting for his colleagues, his friends, his coworkers. And when he finally gets in and has a chance to make the change, when the people that have been in power and have been trying to protect these secrets are now suddenly at risk, it is no surprise that they've closed ranks. They overturned that election without notice or an opportunity to be heard. We didn't see the complaint against him until we were halfway through the appellate process. The appellate process, of course, is run by the union, and they said, everything's fine, we got to do a new election.
How do you think your son would feel about all of this?
He would be livid. He would be absolutely, he would be livid. They always try to find a way to take something back. He would be livid if he were here. And just because they voted him in, you know, it's one thing for outsiders to come in and you know, supervisors maybe, but he was voted in by his peers. They know what he does. They know his worth. They know. He was voted in by his people.
The original Local 44 election was held in August. After winning, Stancil McNair was sworn in. But then protests were filed, a union judicial panel investigated, and a new election ordered.
Why swear Stancil McNair in if this was going to be the outcome that Pat Moran or other union leaders ultimately wanted?
Yeah, you know, I think they got caught a little off guard. I think they were a little surprised that the union members, that they, of course, they're not talking to them. They don't know what the union workers think and feel and believe. So suddenly there's an insurgency, this grassroots movement of union workers that say, enough is enough. We've been mistreated and underappreciated for decades. We're going to stand up and elect one of our own. Somebody's going to stand up and fight for us. I think they got caught a little off guard. You got to get sworn in, so he gets sworn in, and they suddenly realize, well, why don't we just find an excuse to invalidate the election and do it over again? And they stumble across Isabel Cummings' tweets, and they use her private social media posts as a pretext to throw the election into chaos.
I hope they vote him right back in. Just like that. Because guess what? That's what he deserves. Because he is the right man for the job. Because they need somebody in there to be a voice for those people.
We reached out to AFSCME Local 44 for a statement about the hearing and the election. We did not hear back in time for our show. The federal hearing happened Friday. The union vote scheduled for Saturday. You can find the outcome of both on our website at foxbaltimore.com. We'll be right back.
Here's tonight's primetime lineup on Fox 45. Brought to you locally by your McDonald's owner-operators.
The perfect holiday gift doesn't exist. Think again. It's a Hershey Park Season Pass. Unlimited coaster thrills, water park splashes, and sweet perks like free parking and so much more. Get your Hershey Park Season Pass just in time to give the best gift of the holiday season.
Everyone's gearing up for the holidays. The best friend.
So happy together.
And the first timer. The neighborhood hero. And the out-of-towners. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
It's Chevy Red Tag. Now well-qualified buyers can get 0% financing on all 2026 Silverado 1500 models. Plus, Costco Executive members can get a $12.50 members-only incentive.
Tough times happen to everyone. At HK Buys Houses, we're your easy cash home buyers. One call to us and you don't have to worry about repairs, back taxes, or whatever challenge you find yourself in. We buy inherited or vacant houses, rentals, and foreclosures. Everything from severely damaged houses to nice homes that you just need to sell fast. So drop the hammer, stop the repairs, and give us a call today. No commissions, no fees, just cash. Fast for your as-is property. Call 410-709-CASH. That's 709-CASH.
Fox 45 News helps bring Maryland's most wanted fugitives to justice. Every week, Fox 45 News partners with the U.S. Marshals Service and you, the viewer, to hunt down suspected criminals. Fox 45 News, Maryland's most wanted, Thursdays at 10.
When my father started this firm nearly 50 years ago, he believed that every injured person deserves someone to fight for them.
That belief still guides us today. Injury law isn't just what we do, it's who we are.
Call 1-800-INJURED.
Celebrate the holidays at Boscov's with our biggest deals yet. Wrap yourself in savings with hats, gloves, scarves, and more from your favorite designer brands. Just $27.99. Chase away the chill with women's coats from Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Steve Madden, and more from $49.99. Stock up on men's fleece joggers or pants, just $9.99. Plus, don't miss 50% off adorable holiday styles for baby, toddler, and girls. And there's still time to save big with 60% off all holiday decor and home accents for kitchen.
This week, we asked, do you share City State's Attorney Ivan Bates' concerns when it comes to MONSE? Why or why not? Let's take a look at some of your responses. Tavon says, no, we're not voting for him in 2026. Michael says, yes. We also have, if we can get to it, Kim says, yes, there's too much secrecy. And Bernice says, I have not seen what this program is doing for the city, but getting paid for nothing. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Fox 45 News In Depth. I'm Mikenzie Frost.